discussing today's topics from an African American perspective. This is Another View.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Another View. I'm Barbara Hamley. Before we start today's show, our heartfelt condolences to the family of State Senator John Miller. John Miller was an employee here at WHRO. I also worked with him as a journalist during the 90s when I was at WTKR. He's a great friend of ours, of all of us, and we want to wish his family and all of Virginia, who is offering their condolences today. As a matter of fact, the service is going on as we speak. So we offer our condolences to him. We also want to say congratulations to the 2016 Humanitarian Award winners. The Virginia Center for Inclusive Communities held their event last night, and Charles Barker, Bishop B. Courtney McBath, Cindy Cutler, Alvin Wall, Voices of Faith, and Birth of an Answer were all recipients of their humanitarian awards for work that they've done in the community to try to bring inclusion to our community. And a final thanks to those of you who came out on Tuesday night for our final Race Let's Talk About It town hall meeting. The conversation was about race and religion. I think we had just about every race, every religion represented in the group, and it was a great conversation. So we thank you so much for participating. We will start up again next fall, and we'll keep you posted on that. So today we're going to talk about perceptions of the African American community that just will not go away, even though through statistics, science, fact, and any other way you look at it that says otherwise, conventional wisdom continues to deem that it's true. This idea came to me after reading a Washington Post article this week about being black and having pain, but we'll get to that after we meet our panelists. Roger Chesley is a columnist for the Virginian-Pilot, and you can read his columns every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. Hey, Roger.
Hello, Barbara. I didn't know you were such a fan of Earth, Wind, and Fire there at the start.
Yeah, I know. It'd be just before the show started. How about that? Carol Pretlow is a professor of political science at Norfolk State University. Hi, Carol.
Hi, Barbara.
How you doing today?
Wonderful.
Good. Thanks for being with us. Our favorite community activist is Mr. Bill Thomas. How you doing, Bill?
I'm good, but I also just want to accentuate what you said about Senator John Miller, a very, very decent man. I've known him for 30 years in broadcasting when I was with WNIS and WTKR. And I had a chance to speak with his wife, Sharon, and his sister and his mom, who's still very, very active, and just shows you if you have people with courage and people that don't put political persuasion on things, that can just act right and do the most decent thing. Senator Miller was one of those gentlemen,
Absolutely.
A Virginia gentleman.
Thank you.
Rest in
Thank you,
peace,
Bill.
sir.
Absolutely. Rest in peace. And joining us today, our guest pundit, Ms. Delceno Miles. She's owner of the Miles Agency, a PR niche marketing firm, which is arguably the oldest black PR firm in Virginia. Delceno has worked on branding and marketing for national, regional, and local companies, as well as nonprofits. And she also teaches at Regent University. Hey, Delceno.
Hey, Miss B.
See, she already fits in.
What religion are you teaching?
I did not say she taught religion.
Just
Would you like to tell Mr. Thomas what you teach at Regent?
Marketing and public relations, religiously.
That's religion. That's big time religion.
Okay. All right, so let's get started, because Roger actually is the catalyst behind this. He sent out an article this week, and I want our audience to understand that even though the roundtable only comes together once a month on the air, we do communicate all month long with various articles and topics and things of interest. And so a Washington Post article says that African Americans are routinely undertreated for pain compared to whites, according to research done by the University of Virginia. The study questioned a general group of white people and then white first, second, third, and resident medical students. So there were two groups that they looked at. One of the findings, for example, is that many of the white medical students and residents in the study believe that blacks have less sensitive nerve endings than whites, or that black people's blood coagulates more quickly. There was another study done by Emory University in Atlanta that found that 74% of white patients with bone fractures received painkillers, compared with only 50% of black patients. And yet another study found that black children with appendicitis were less likely to receive pain medication than their white counterparts. And all of these studies concluded that unconscious stereotypes of African Americans contribute to the way that doctors treat African American patients. Roger?
It's one of those things that just makes your jaw drop. And I think the thing that was the most disturbing to me about this is the study of the folks who were studying to be the results from the folks who were studying to be doctors. I mean, if anybody's supposed to know this already, it should have been them. You might be able to excuse folks who weren't in the medical field, but how can you excuse this if this is the profession that you're supposed to be going in and you don't know the difference? And I think two things, and we discussed this beforehand, Barbara, was the sense that either A, there's some notion that black folks are superhuman, or B, maybe the one that's even more damning, is that we're inhuman. That we don't really need this help. We don't really need this.
Let me bring in one of the other things that came out of the study. So, of the general group of people, not doctors, 58% believe that black skin is thicker than whites. Okay, all right, we get that from general sense. First-year medical students, 40% believed it. Second-year medical students, 42% believed it. Third-year medical students, 22%. And residents, people who treat you in the emergency room,
Right.
25%. Delceno.
Residents, they finish school. These are scientists. They're scientists by nature and by study, so it's disturbing that they have that stereotype. I'm not surprised, but it's still nevertheless just as disturbing. So it makes me wonder, well, I purposely seek out African American doctors for that, not because of the study, but because, one, I'm more comfortable, they understand my culture, they know what questions to ask. And I don't think this would go into it, these factors. So, and I'm not one of the types that says, well, white doctors are better than black doctors. We have that stereotype within our own community, so that we won't support African-American physician because for some reason they're inferior.
Right, we think they're not as educated, they're not as...
That's right, so that's worse. But for these... doctors coming, and I don't know what year this study was.
It just came out.
The most recent study just came out.
2015 or so?
Well, yes.
So these are doctors that are new in the profession and going out there now. So it makes me wonder what kind of care are they giving their black patients? And these are the same folks who are going to bill insurance companies probably the same rate. So is there discrimination there? Or are they providing unnecessary treatment to African Americans for the billing?
Well, the same thing, Bill.
Oh, I agree. And if you look at the different issues related to the statistics, black men, like the two of us, are 70% more likely to die from prostate cancer than white men. Black women are, even though you have lower diagnostics for breast cancer, are 60% more likely to die than white women. I even had a personal experience. So this is a history of this. It's clearly when our first child had issues being born, we moved from Cleveland to Shaker Heights, went to a white facility, and suffered horribly for it. So this is nothing new. The statistics spell it out. Just as an example, from but from a business standpoint, cancer in Virginia is going to increase 36% over the next 5 years. For black folks, it's going to increase 80%. Portsmouth leads the state, and all the other, the city of Hampton leads in an incident of cancer. Still, when we try to do things to particularly target African American community, not only does the government not give us more resources, they take the resources away. So this is nothing more than data point proof that what the numbers say are actually true. There is institutionalized racism throughout the American system of finance, health, education, and nothing, unfortunately, nothing has really been done to dent the curve.
Carol, let me read one other statistic, and this will play kind of into our next topic also. But according to the study, black couples are significantly more fertile than white couples. Now, 17% of the general population believes that. 10% of first-year med students, 15% of second-year med students, 2% of third-year med students, 7% of residents.
They obviously aren't treating the Kennedys.
Exactly.
Just saying.
Or the McCoys.
I am speechless because I would think that even if they went into medical school with some preconceived stereotypical notions, that their studies, their scientific background, and all of that would kick in, and then they would see that this is not true. And so it amazes me. I mean, I can understand maybe there is a lack of information once you graduate from college and go to medical school, but once you get in and you are involved in the process of scientific research and scientific applications, then there should be a change.
You know, it's kind of interesting because as you look at each of the categories, and this article is from the Washington Post that came, but if you look at each of the categories, the numbers between the first year and second year a lot of times go up as opposed to going down, which really makes you also wonder, Roger, what are they teaching?
Yeah, and you wonder that, and you wonder what they're not getting leading up to medical school, but definitely what's happening after they get to medical school. I just wanted to relay an issue that my wife and I go through with our older daughter. She has sickle cell disease, and you know, she got very good care here at Children's Hospital, the King's Daughters. The one of the main physicians there, Dr. Owen, he's white, and he gave her excellent care. But one of the things now that she's aged out of that now she's no longer in the pediatric care, we're finding it is not the same concentration of care among adults. And so we're very concerned as she continues her education. She's now going to get ready to work on a PhD. Where she goes, is she going to be able to get the same type of care, the same type of sensitivity? And this goes beyond whether you have these myths. This is just a question of knowledge of the different diseases that we might have as a people, and that we might be genetically predisposed to have.
Okay. The issue is even more strikingly important. I'm sure Roger will catch up with it during the next General Assembly, which we're going to go through a thing called Certificate of Public Need. And basically the hospitals give free care to indigents. And the Republican-led House want to make medicine market-driven. So they will eliminate the Certificate of Public Need. So when you look at all of these things that are dramatically targeting, whether by presupposition or just by happen chance, our people, our leaders aren't identifying these issues. Let them get rid of Certificate of Public Need, lay it on the top of an institutionalized issue related to care and the health and the consideration of humanity among African Americans by the very professionals and scientists. This curve is just going to keep going up, where we're going to continue to suffer. And if the numbers for men like Roger and myself with cancer, we're going to be 70% likely. We're not going to be, because we're in the income group that's going to get us out of that. We're going to be 75% more likely to die from cancer, which is going to increase 35% over the next 5 years in Virginia, and we're going to take whatever little support that we have away from those in most need, the indigent.
Well, and when you look at the fact that most poor people in general use the emergency room as their place of primary care, and most of your residents work in your emergency rooms.
There you go.
It gets a little scary. Let's talk to Matt in Virginia Beach. Hi, Matt. You're on the air.
Hi there. When I learned earlier about these findings this week, I was quite shocked. And clearly, it's a matter of people bringing their racist views with them into their training and leaving without being disabused of them. But I would like to point out one thing. When you talk about these people being scientists, you know, the people with PhDs in biology and so forth, they're doing science. Medical doctors are practitioners. I mean, they are quite literally still applying leeches and drilling holes in people's heads. So I just want to point out that the notion that they're scientists, so they shouldn't have these views, is actually quite flawed. They're not really scientists. They're practitioners of.
Could I ask a question? But do they not use their scientific skills to become excellent medical doctors?
They don't by and large have excellent scientific skills. They study enough science to get into medical school, and then they're trained in how to actually practice medicine as an art, not as a science.
I don't know what school they're going
Okay.
to.
Well, thanks, Matt, for your call. Anybody else want to respond to him before we go into our next topic?
Well,
Go
the only
ahead,
thing
Roger.
I just add as another personal note, and the story that when I passed along to you, it made me think of this incident when I was about 23, 24. Had sprained my ankle in Detroit after playing basketball, thinking I could play. And I remember going to the doctors, and I needed to get an x-ray. And the physician on duty, he didn't provide a wheelchair for me. He just basically, you can walk to where the room is. And you know, I was young, stupid, and didn't make enough of a fuss at the time. But it bothered me in years, you know, after that. It was like, okay, so what superhuman strength am I supposed to have? You can see my ankle is swollen, and you know that I'm in pain. And it's just, you just wonder how much of this is people not caring or something else more
care.
sinister.
Okay.
Well,
Go ahead,
Barbara,
go ahead.
all right, fine. I mean, I'm not going to debate the part, you know, tomato. They do study science. They prescribe chemicals
Yes.
for people to treat illness and treat disease. So you have to have some knowledge of science and chemistry and all of that. Second, I think hidden in there, too, is not so much what they're bringing to the table, but it's the bedside manner that they're bringing into it. So, Roger, why wouldn't the doctor think twice about easing the suffering of a patient?
Absolutely.
That is
Absolutely.
your task.
Exactly.
And with the Hippocratic Oath, you know, you just don't want to do any harm. So if you're coming in with a harmful perspective on how to treat a patient because you're saying that your skin is thicker, and this has nothing to do with politics. So, so you're saying that because you are predisposed to a certain way, and you're going to look at me through that flawed lens, then my care is going to be different.
Absolutely.
With the same, if a non-African American, young, as Roger self-described, stupid. So I'm quoting here.
I'm much older now, thank you.
So if he's coming in with the same condition, would he have offered a wheelchair?
To him.
Absolutely.
And that's where the difference comes in. All right, let's go on to the second topic, and that is that there's a news anchor in Pittsburgh. Her name is Wendy Bell, and she was fired.
Was she fired?
Yes, she
She
was.
was.
Yes,
Okay,
she
all
was
right.
fired.
Okay.
Yes, after her comments that she posted on Facebook. Now,
Okay.
she's an 18-year news veteran.
Okay.
There was a mass shooting in the Pittsburgh neighborhood. There were 6 family members who died, including a pregnant woman. And Wendy wrote a lot about her frustration about what happened and who was responsible for it. And I want to read just a little bit of what she said. And this is the thing that sent people in Pittsburgh apparently through the roof. Quote, "You needn't be a criminal profiler to draw a mental sketch of the killers who broke so many hearts 2 weeks ago Wednesday. I will tell you they live within 5 miles of Franklin Avenue and Ardmore Boulevard. They've been hiding out. They are young black men, likely teens or in their early 20s. They have multiple siblings from multiple fathers, and their mothers work multiple jobs. These boys have been in the system before. They've grown up there. They know the police. They've been arrested. They've made the circuit, and nothing has scared them enough. Now they are lost. Once you kill a neighbor's 3 children, 2 nieces, and her unborn grandson, there is no coming back." Now, the issue around this is that police had not put out any description at all of who the suspects were and what was going on with that. So that was the first thing of the posting that upset people. The second part of her post was that she went on to talk about how there was hope within the black community that she saw through a young African-American man, quote, hustling like nobody's business, unquote, in a restaurant where they were having dinner. She said the child stacked heavy glasses 10 high and carried 3 teetering towers of them in one hand with plates piled high in the other. He wiped off tables, tended to the chairs, got down on his hands and knees to pick up the scraps that had fallen on the floor. And he did all of this with a rhythm and a step that gushed positivity. He moved like a dancer with a satisfied smile on his face.
Wow.
And I couldn't take my eyes off him. He is going to make it.
Press
All right, who wants to start first? Carol,
First
go
of
ahead.
all, there's so many stereotypical comments there. then to assume, yes, okay, I give it that this person is hardworking, but that does not mean that there are not other categories of people who are working hard within the black community. Third, she does not know the background of those specific individuals, and one's background may be different from the other alleged perpetrators of the crime. Finally, her statements had so many component parts that were stereotypes of the black community. I found that offensive in so many ways.
Bill,
Who did the murder? Did they eventually catch the folks?
they're still looking
They're
for
still
it.
out there?
So
Do you
they
know,
are
Roger? Do you have more?
What they're
Roger has
saying
an
now is
update.
that there are 4 people who have been questioned. One has been named a suspect. 3 black men, 1 black woman were the 4 that were, according to the pictures that I saw in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. And this was in the last couple of days. And one of the injured is apparently the target of the shootings.
Okay. And they're all African American?
Yes, I believe all.
Yes, they are
all the victims and the suspects.
I just think that this is one of the reasons why, and I'm not endorsing Donald Trump or anything like that, but I'm endorsing the frustration. I think what this woman said, and she may have stepped over the line a little bit by going and presuming that this had happened.
More than a little bit.
Well, I don't think so. I truly don't. I just think that she took something to heart and wrote it down. Should have thought about it. Shouldn't have put it out there. But at the end of the day, whatever she speculated appears to be true. So all of the murders.
But okay, let me ask this question then to and then Roger, I'm coming to you.
Okay.
But Bill, if you say then it appears to be true, but did she?
No,
I'm asking the question by her writing it before she even had any proof of that.
What's wrong?
Is that not
wrong.
a problem?
That's wrong.
Yeah.
That's wrong.
Okay.
That's wrong. That's
and
wrong.
it goes
Okay,
proof
Roger.
in
As a
court.
journalist, and especially if you are not a columnist, you are not an editorial writer.
Right.
You are supposed to, before you jump out there.
Get some facts.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
She's
exactly.
a TV anchor. She's been there for 18 years.
She's supposed to know better, even if those were her thoughts. She should have said, "Okay, what do the facts actually say? Where are we actually going with that?"
I disagree.
I would hate that she loses the job. However, I would also say her comments in general showed a certain lack of sensitivity and a certain naivete. I mean, one of the things she said about the young man at the restaurant was, I wonder if it was perhaps the only time he'd ever been hugged before. Like when
She made a lot of assumptions that she was a fatherless child.
She knows nothing about this young.
Was.
No, she knows nothing about this
Anyhow,
young man.
so
Might come from
one
a
at a
two-parent
time.
family.
One at a time.
And, she doesn't know how much hugging he's getting or how much love that he's, getting at home. And I just thought that there was some leaps of thinking here that I'm not sure would have been given to somebody else, that she would have made that somebody else. Now, I think a suspension would have been fine. I wish she hadn't been fired. She has been at the station for 18 years.
She'll go to Fox. She'll be on Fox News.
Go ahead, Delceno.
Yeah. Well, it's her Facebook post. It's a rant. That's how I look at it. It was a rant.
Yeah.
Was it insensitive? Yes. Did she do it out of frustration and anger?
Yes.
Most likely. Is she a racist? Don't know. The comments in the context here that you read, Barbara, sound racist. They do.
Yeah,
I don't support this. I'm not defending what she wrote. I'd certainly defend her freedom to express herself. But to as a journalist, a trained journalist with a seasoned journalist, to make those statements before any evidence has been put forth by law enforcement is reckless at best.
And the thing about they were within 5 miles of where the shooting took place. How she know that? Where's that coming from?
Well, what I took from it was that this entire neighborhood, whatever that neighborhood was, that was the issues. But I see what you're saying. Now, the station, which is WTAE TV,
What
they
city?
did
It's in the Pittsburgh area.
Pittsburgh.
Okay.
They posted and they made an apology. Wendy Bell posted a message on her Facebook page that offended many of our viewers. Her post offended us. Wendy has since apologized, which she did, for what she wrote and acknowledged it was insensitive. Wendy is sorry for the word she chose, and so are we. It was an egregious lack of judgment. But again, having a professional journalist, words matter. We had a discussion about this recently with a young girl in one of our public housing units was shot, 12-year-old,
Right.
and was shot. And the language used by officials and others to talk about it was perpetrator and victim, and they're words that some say dehumanize the community and make them not necessarily real. I just wonder how you guys react to that.
I don't know about all of that. I think we had 2 murders or being shot in Newport News this morning, a couple in Norfolk, 1 in Chesapeake. I mean, some of these communities are out of control, out of order. I mean, and you know where they are. I mean, people just want to step on glasses or I'm not trying to put anybody down. I'm not trying to say I'm better or anything else. Clearly, I'm not saying that. But I'm not going to shoot somebody who steps on my toe. I'm not going to put a 13-year-old or this fool that's being tried now for killing this 1-year-old kid in Portsmouth or someplace. The other day he's being tried now in Norfolk or someplace. I'm not going to do that kind of reckless behavior. I understand the frustration of this young lady. She pretty well much knows. Is this an all-black community that this stuff happened in? It's out of control. It's out of order. Why don't we try to work on that versus trying to? And I understand the professionalism. Right? Mm-hmm. I'm not even going there with that. Mm-hmm. She blew it. She should have not done that. But at the end of the day, the people are still getting killed.
If you're just joining us, we're talking about prevailing myths about the African American community with Roger Chesley, columnist for the Virginian-Pilot, Carol Pretlow, political science professor with NSU, community activist Bill Thomas, and guest pundit Delceno Miles, owner of the Miles Agency, a PR niche marketing firm. Roger.
Yeah, but, and again, to the whole point of professionalism, I mean, I just did a column that was in yesterday's paper about an incident that took place in D.C. where a 17-year-old black male shot a 15-year-old black boy at a metro station over a look. But I did some research on that. I actually reached out to the U.S. Attorney's Office for the District of Columbia to get some statements on that. And you have to be very careful about overbroad, uninformed statements. I mean, we know there's a problem. We know that there are deficiencies. We know we kill each other at ridiculous rates. But what are we, you don't have to throw gasoline on it.
Then what do you do? Nothing's happening. What do? You do what Bill Clinton did? What do you do?
Well, you try to suggest, I mean, one of the things I did in the conference yesterday, I wonder if we really understand where we came from and some of the things that we're still doing. And so, I tried to turn it around at least a little bit and say, hey, maybe if we understood our history, maybe we understood our survival, maybe we would stop doing this as much as we did. And at least I think that was something constructive. I didn't find anything constructive in what this anchor did.
Carol.
Yeah, I have a problem with it in so many ways. And first of all, these are alleged perpetrators, and they do not become officially a charged as guilty until they go through the court system. And she's putting the cart before the wheel. She's definitely over the line here.
Delceno, I see you kind of grimacing a little bit.
Well, I hate to say this. I'm kind of leaning towards Bill here. But
oh, my God.
That's okay.
I say kind of. I kept my blood sugar a little low. So that's my disclaimer, low blood sugar. But there is a lot of anger out there. And we're not, the black community is not disputing that we have issues. But she did this on her private Facebook page. So I agree with Roger that she shouldn't have lost her job over it. If anything, this is a learning opportunity.
It was on a station Facebook page. It wasn't on a private. It was on a station.
It was a whole other thing. But either way, before she had pressed send, you would think that she would have read over it or calmed down or something. This was a rant, and it was out of anger and frustration and the brutality of the crime.
Yeah.
Children were slaughtered.
But she even said that she waited a while before she's
still angry.
Decided to write this, and then she went ahead. Go ahead, Roger.
I don't mind the anger, but where do you say something that's constructive or that actually helps? And then secondly, I don't know about you, Delceno, but when I put stuff even on my personal Facebook page, I am very I try to be very cognizant of what type of message I'm coming, because in a sense I'm I'm a personality because my face is always in the paper and my face is always on the online site.
Right.
And
But do you
so,
think, but Roger, are we oversensitive about this stuff, though? Are we oversensitive? Are we giving her more of her 15 minutes than she deserves, quite frankly?
well, the fact
Because this doesn't change the fact that a family was slaughtered.
Absolutely.
it doesn't change that at all. But what did she add to the conversation except something negative for herself and for the station?
As you see it, a lot of people don't believe it's negative in what she did. I don't believe it's negative in what she did.
Yeah, I read some of the posts to her Facebook, and it was about 50-50.
I don't agree with you on that point. I understand
Okay.
professionalism, but
Hang
what
on.
she said, I have no problem with
Let's
it. for the
talk
most
to
part.
Lance from Portsmouth. Hi, Lance. You're on the air.
Good morning. Thank you for afternoon, and thank you for taking my call.
Mm-hmm.
I think she was very brave in her comments. I believe she sympathized with the struggle going on in our community. She
Amen.
was appalled by the violence, and we have to stop deflecting the conversation. We believe in personal liberties and people's right to speak out, and then she's criticized for it. She felt like she was adding to the discussion and talking about a problem that we have and bringing attention to it. She wasn't trying to hurt anyone, and she's being punished for it. And if you read the whole article, the media is giving excerpts of what she said, but if you read the whole article and take it in its full context, she was trying to bring light to a problem we have in our community. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Lance. Do you guys agree with that?
I totally agree
Do you
with
agree with that, Roger?
I totally agree.
I'm conflicted on it. I didn't think that she should have been fired. I think she should have been suspended. And I actually read there was triblive.com actually posted on March 30th the entire post, which has since been deleted.
Right.
And I actually read it, and I just thought that she was more imprecise and naive. Not
Emotional.
necessarily something that she was trying to be destructive, but I would have thought better than for somebody who's been in the business at that station for 18 years. I would have thought she would have shown a little bit more sensitivity and a little bit more caution too.
Well, as a former news director, as a leader in the newsroom, I think that I agree with you. The firing bothers me a little bit because I think they may have taken it a bit too far.
Mm-hmm.
But I do believe that the apology was necessary, and I do believe that once again, as a news director, I would look at my newsroom them and say, "Do I need to come back with some more sensitivity training?" Because what she said, it doesn't matter whether it was true or not, Bill. It was not her place. As a journalist, you're supposed to be about facts and objective. And she was not objective. And she posted it on the station's Facebook page,
I'm hearing
which
you.
represents the station.
I'm feeling you, but here's what
Okay.
I'm saying as well. I wonder in her personal life if she's lost any relatives to violence. I wonder in her personal life. And it should be disconnected. Nobody is saying that. But rather than deflect the nonsense and the tragedy and the human life and toil that was the actions of these folks who did this, it's reflected upon her. And I just think the station did not be sensitive to her frustrations. I wondered if anybody said her. I'm going to try to call her. She's cute, too. And the C is
Married with 5 kids, okay?
Thank you. Yes, she's married with 5 children.
And no job.
No job.
No.
Yeah.
Okay, with that,
Can I just
just
say-
let Roger, you had the last comment on this. Hang on, you guys.
And unfortunately, I think what's getting missed here is that a family was basically decimated in this.
Yes.
And five people died. An unborn child died. 3 other
My
people
goodness.
seriously injured.
Yeah.
In fact,
It was an awful thing.
the target of this apparently he has several bullets still left in his body. So
Wow.
we're talking about just a horrendous issue, and it was, and I understand that from that perspective why she wanted to weigh in.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a tape I'd like you all to listen to, and this is some different thoughts about mythology and being African American.
So tell me some things that black folk don't do.
Black folk don't swim.
Have eating disorders.
Not only is that not true, but it's becoming increasingly not true.
Black folk don't camp.
We don't like animals. Well, we do like dogs.
Black folks don't commit suicide.
We have a line that we draw.
Black folk don't do atheism.
It's kind of like their dirty little secret.
Blackness is portable. We don't lose it when we go do some stuff that black folk don't do.
Black folk don't get married.
That question got me a little nervous, you know.
If there's 40 million black people, there's 40 million ways to be black.
Is that not the ultimate point, that there are 40 million black people and there are 40 million different ways to be black?
And that's true of all races.
No, that's
We don't all know each other.
No, that's just flat out truth.
Okay, so I asked each one of you to bring along a peeve, a thought about that you hear often about, as Donald Trump calls us, the blacks. and just give us some of your thoughts about a prevailing thing that may go on that you think is not true. Delceno, I'm going to start with you since you're our guest pundit. Besides dancing.
That somehow we're intellectually inferior. So as we have a couple educators, and Rogers is a great dad, so that one pisses me off, and the one that black men are not good fathers, because I'm sitting with two of them, and from personal experience, I'm not saying that because they're here. I know it from personal observation. And so, those are the ones that get the press. So when we honor, like with the 200 plus, they honor the young men. There's nothing but fathers in that place. So it's not just all black moms with their sons getting a scholarship. It's dads too. So that one, those two, the one, I don't know. You recall William Shockley?
Yes.
Who that is, and where he wrote the book about our inferiority.
Yes.
According to him, that somehow we're less smart. And if you have some Caucasian blood in you, you get a little bit smarter. I'm almost quoting it verbatim. So those are the things that bother me. I sit here as a Stanford graduate. I sit here with a master's degree. And I didn't get it playing basketball or any other sport. I got it because I studied hard and I had the capacity to not only be admitted to Stanford, but finish on time.
You know, I had the pleasure of interviewing Clay Jenkinson as Thomas Jefferson with the Jefferson Hour recently. And one of the things that we talked about, as Mr. Jefferson and I talked about, was the fact that how he would always ask blacks to prove that they accomplished something. And then he would call his other white friends and say, well, either they have more white blood in them or they got some help from someone else who was black. So even
affirmative action. They got in undeservedly, which is sort of the assumption when you think of affirmative action.
Bill, some of your thoughts.
No, it's really simple, is that blacks don't love America, that we haven't contributed to the success and the wholesomeness and the values and the faith and all of those things, that from the very beginning we've shed our blood, we've died, we've toiled, we've slaved, we've took it all. And we took it all with a humanity where we knew we were wrong. And a lot of folks on the other side don't see that, and they don't hear that, but they don't even want to measure it. But every African-American I know, from the worst liberal to the highest right-wing fanatical, we all love America. We all love our faith. We all love our families. And a lot of times when you just want to go to sleep and think about it at night, you have a tear in your eye. I love this country. I love where I am. I love these people, but these people don't love me back. And actually, they hurt me just for being, like Delceno just said, for being good, to get into Stanford, or my sisters, my family, get into all these schools based upon their talent. Why don't you love me the way I love you? And then they take it and turn it against us when we rebel, not out of hating America, but by hating the treatment, the toils that we have to do, the battles unnecessarily that we have to fight, that we've won. And I can give you 1,000 cases. Or if you are a great leader, and we have good leaders in the education communities and business communities, these people, they don't give them the same respect that they give other people who have not toiled a tenth of what these people have put up. So my issue is, we do love America. America, all we want is some love back, because we did more than any people on the face of this earth, other than the American Indian, have given everything to this country, everything. And still you can't go to a hospital with medically trained doctors. We know they're not scientists. They use scientists to treat us fair. And our kids are dying. I lost a child because of an incompetent doctor who I decided to use in a very affluent neighborhood in Cleveland, Shaker Heights, instead of going back and dealing with African American who understood our pain. And they literally didn't understand my wife's pain. And we literally lost a child because of that.
Carol.
I think mine is very connected to yours because I hear black people don't read. Well, I'm with a lot of young people who read things that are outside the classroom. And, in fact, they say, oh, Miss Pretlow, have you read? Go to Barnes & Noble or go to this store, and they'll have it. I think that now this generation, you all have your devices, and a lot of times they are reading on those devices, and the assumption that they don't read because they don't have a book is totally erroneous. Mm-hmm. The other side of it is, yesterday in one of my classes, State Senator Ken Alexander was there, and he was talking about some of the issues of the Norfolk community. And he said he was astounded by the questions he got about the cost of things and who's going to pay for this. So we have that myth that they are not analytical thinkers. They are, and that just bothers me, because they don't memorize things. Why should they memorize stuff that they can read about, that they can analyze, that they can apply? That bothers me.
Roger.
Two things that jumped out to me. One, that we're, as a people, incapable of being political leaders, of being running cities and states and the nation. And I think that now that we've had those chances, we've proved that we can be just as capable or just as corrupt as the whites who were predecessors. And, power, money, they corrupt. And it takes a certain type of individual, regardless of race, to either, deal with that and turn it away, or to grab it with both fistfuls. So there's that. And then the second thing that we can be, as African Americans, we can be athletes, but little else. And I always get a kick when I see that somebody goes to, I like this NCAA commercial that was a few years back about all the people who go to school and then they major in something that's not sports. And you show the all the different areas that we as athletes, we can go through school, but we can then do just a whole host of other things. Mm-hmm. Now, having said that, we know there are problems among our race. We know that we have too many children growing up without two parents. We know that statistically we are overrepresented in the criminal justice system and that we kill each other with brutal efficiency. We know that. So some of the myths come from these threads and from these strains. And I think the important thing is to, say it's not always everybody, again, 40 million people. So there are all different types of things that go into that 40 million.
So it sometimes doesn't feel like the black community is always...
Where is that black community, by the way?
Is always swept with a broad brush, no matter what, and particularly if it's a negative statistic. But, here's one I want to ask you guys about. So last time, for the past two presidential elections, President Obama, an African-American man, has been in office. Massive voting from the black community. Was it only because he was black?
I would say 80%.
At least.
And so you don't think that this year we're going to get the same kinds of numbers?
I don't think there's going to be the same enthusiasm. As you know, usually 92% in the presidential election goes for Democrats.
But was it more historical and the reason why they voted, or was it more simply because he's black? Well, in other words, the myth being that if it's a black person, every black person is going to follow along.
In 2008, that was true. Because it was historical, and he was black, but he was capable.
The best candidate.
Yeah, he was the better candidate.
And look who he was running against in 2000.
Yeah, exactly. And weak competition helps. But I think that for your question about the black community, I think they saw a black man up there. Regardless, he was a true African American because he's part Kenyan and part American. So he represented so much And I think the proudest time was when we had the older people, like in their 80s and 90s, who got to see it.
Yeah.
And they thought they'd never see it. So I think there were so many things. And not only that, but he got young blacks to vote, which is not a dependable block in regular times, let alone when a black candidate runs. But he got young people to really go in and execute their civic responsibility for the first time for many. And not because they just turned 18, but many had voted, had registered for the first time. Absolutely. And I thought that was significant, that he got people who didn't care about the system before, and now they found someone that they had that motivated them to do that, where people died and bled and were killed for us to have the right to vote less than, 2 generations ago.
Mm-hmm. So, go ahead, Bill.
No, I disagree. I just think first of all, he was a better candidate. People were tired of the war. I was most definitely tired of the war. We were lied to about the war. Too many of our brothers and sisters and kin have died and been wounded for that, and we need to move on.
All right. Let's take the current. And Carol, you're the political scientist on the bench here. But so as we look at this upcoming election, if more black people or as many black people don't vote, is it simply because there are no black candidates, or is it because of other reasons? Maybe they're not happy with the choices.
I think it's for other reasons, and I've done an informal poll on campus to find out that people are, I don't want to say discouraged, but they look at who is there. Trump, he's not focusing on issues. Even if you disagree with his perspective, if he would focus on issues and talk about the pros and cons, that's not happening. They look at Hillary Clinton. There is some history there. There's some reticence because they said, well, is she just jumping on the bandwagon now because she needs the vote and she's kind of dovetailing into what Obama has done? They see her as opportunistic and they're discouraged. Saunders, philosophically good, but
you're saying though still that they're interested enough to know
and there are organizations that are very much committed to getting students involved, and the students themselves are registering people to vote or going to people and asking them to vote. So,
okay, Roger.
Yeah, and with the current crop of candidates, you see some that are more populist in Trump and Sanders, but when you dig down into what they say that they'll do, there seems to be just little sense of reality in what they're planning.
Yeah.
And for the more sober ones, they don't just generate the same type of enthusiasm. And I think that that's really going to be a problem if Hillary wins the Democratic nomination. That, is she going to be able to generate some of the turnout she's going to need in some states that have been purple the past couple of elections? Mm-hmm. Are they going to fall out of the Democratic category? And I think that you're seeing some of that fear actually going on right now. And the Republicans, they just think that while Trump is very, he's getting a plurality in many of the states, he's going to really kill them in some of the down ballot races because they might not get the same type of turnout they need to hold on to some of the Senate and some of the House seats. Mm-hmm.
Let me bring up one thing. Will Levis could not be with us today. He was traveling, but he did send me a note about what his thoughts were, and he said one of the many myths is that blacks have a monopoly on not supporting each other as a racial ethnic group. We often hear that blacks don't or can't back each other like the Jews or Asians, etc., and so on. But there's no, his quote, black self-hate gene, which is what racism would have all Americans believe. The truth is that inflating exploitation and scamming, classism, sexism, discrimination exists among all peoples. It's a human trait. What is not a myth is that too many blacks have internalized this false crabs in a barrel belief themselves. Mm-hmm. What do you guys think? We got 3 minutes left. Do you agree with him? Disagree with
there
him?
is no gene, that's for sure. So, I agree on that. But I think, we have our own stereotypes within our community, too. So we're not immune to it. And there is that concept of being a hater. Mm-hmm. I dealt with that growing up, and we didn't call it that then. Now we call it bullying, where the way I speak now versus like this, it was called acting white. Mm-hmm. And it's somehow that was not a good thing. And I was blessed to have a strong mother who encouraged me to continue to pursue excellence. And for some reason, not as much now that I'm older, but excellence somehow was equated to being white. And I just don't buy into that, but too many do. It's great to be a wonderful Michael Jordan basketball player. That's fine because he's a basketball player. But he's a businessman, too. The man's a billionaire, not because of the basketball. Basketball helped, but the fact that he owns a team. So I really had some notes here about the business side because that takes a certain amount of skill that transcends race. Roger's written many columns about those kinds of success stories. You don't have to be, whether you run a barbershop or a billion-dollar company, we still have that skill set. We still come from good stock. All of us are here in this country because we come from good stock. They survived the Middle Passage, they survived slavery, they survived Jim Crow, and we are their descendants. I think we owe them to be excellent because they sacrificed so much for us.
Absolutely. And Delceno Miles, our guest pundit, you got the last word this time around.
Well, thank you. Just make my check payable to Delceno Miles. Y'all know I'm doing it for community service. Something else black folks do.
Absolutely. And we will be right back.
Amen.
I am Brother Cornell West, and when I'm in Hampton Roads, I make it a point to listen to Another View with my dear sister Barbara Ham Lee on WHRV FM.
Brother Cornell West, you didn't know that one, huh, Delceno?
Okay, how much you get paid?
He didn't get paid either. This is public radio. Thanks, everybody, for joining us today. If you'd like to hear the show again or share it with a friend, visit our website, anotherviewradio.org, and download the podcast. Like us on Facebook, and I'm on Twitter at Barbara Ham Lee. Next week on Another View, meet the new police chief of Portsmouth, Chief Tanya Chapman. It's also your chance to support Another View by becoming a member. Support what you love. Our spring membership drive starts tomorrow. And this coming Monday, April the 11th, don't miss the latest Ken Burns documentary, Jackie Robinson, the story of the man who broke the color line in baseball. It starts Monday at 9 on WHRO TV 15. Our theme music was composed and performed by Jay Sennett. Lisa Godley is our show producer. Victor Bowen is our audio engineer, and Melanie Booth answered our phones. I'm Barbara Ham Lee. Have a fabulous weekend, everyone. Let's get together again next Friday at noon for Another View.